Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Life After Undergrad, the podcast where we talk about the challenges, triumphs, and everything in between as we navigate the transitions from college life into the real world. I'm Chnoa, a licensed master social worker, and today's episode is all about one of the most constant things we'll experience in life as we grow: change. Now, I get it. Change is scary. Whether you're just wrapping up your degree, or you've been out of school for a while, or you're just entering college, we all know that adulthood brings its fair share of unexpected transitions. From figuring out your career path, to figuring new friendships and managing relationships, life can feel like a whirlwind of new changes. But here's the truth: change is something we can't avoid. In fact, it's one of the only things we can truly count on as we step into the world of young adulthood. So, today, let's dive into how change shows up in our lives during this season of emerging adulthood and explore some ways we can support ourselves through these continual shifts. Because, let's be real, no one really gives us the manual on how to cope with everything that comes before, during, or after undergrad or any graduation, right? Let's start with something we'll all face after undergrad or after a change: the identity crisis. If you've ever looked in the mirror after finishing your degree or finishing something and wondering, who am I now? You're not alone. This period of life is full of uncertainty, and it's normal to feel like you constantly are evolving. You've been conditioned to think of yourself as a student for years. And now? Well, now you're stepping into a new chapter, one that requires redefining who you are and what your role in the world is. And that change is happening all around us during this time. For many, it's the first time we have to make big adult decisions like choosing a career path, managing finances, or even figuring out how to balance work, life, and self-care. So, how do we handle everything? Here's a powerful thought: change doesn't have to feel like an end. It's often the beginning of something new. And trust me, that's a good thing. So, what are some of the major changes that we face as young adults, and how can we support ourselves through it? Let's break it down. The first one I want to highlight is career shifts and uncertainty. As we talk about careers and uncertainty, I'd love to dive into a personal experience of mine coming out of my undergraduate program. I graduated Sacred Heart University in 2023 with my bachelor's in social work, as well as minoring in psychology, as well as social justice and human rights. So this was something that I did not originally go into college or applied to Sacred Heart for. I originally applied and got accepted into the nursing program, which is very competitive. So I ended up going into my first semester at Sacred Heart University in fall of 2019 before COVID, and I did a pre-fall program where I got to really immerse myself into the nursing student community and really get involved with the peers that I would have within classes. It was such a great experience, and I truly felt connected, but it wasn't for me. And I found out it wasn't for me when I started taking classes and things just weren't sticking. It was very science-based, which was something that I had always struggled with in my high school and middle school. It wasn't my strongest subject. And that was something I wasn't really prepared for, as in high school, I did go to a technical school. So half the year I was in academics, where I was taking those science, math, and art courses, while half the year I was in shop, which was the health technology shop, where I practiced to become a CNA up until my junior year, and then more practicing into preparing to enter the health professional field. So going from that and then transitioning into my first semester as a nursing student at Sacred Heart University, it was a complete, like, in a sense, culture shock, because I was completely behind when it came to the science courses and the preparation that many other peers within the program had that I did not. whether that was taking AP classes or college courses prior, I was not fully immersed into science as much as they were, and that was pretty prevalent. There were resources like tutoring, there was resources like office hours, and while I still utilized those and tried my hardest, I was only able to get, I think, up to like a 76, a 74. And for me, I know the student I am and the academic capabilities I have, and that was just not meeting. So not only did I have to take into account my performance, but I had to take into account the effect that this program was having on me mentally. So I had to really sit down with myself and realize that this wasn't for me. So, as a nursing major, I still had two minors that I intended on taking, which was psychology and social work. So, while I was at the ad drop point, which was right around midterms. So, I literally did this the last day of ad drop. So, it's crazy with the luck that I had. But so basically, I noticed the test scores I was having, which weren't that great, but I was performing better on the exams versus the practicals, which were the hands on identifying things, which I noticed was very poorly. Like I was unable to really perform well at that at all. I failed those practicals. I think I took one, maybe two, and then I was getting C's on the exams. So I really had to sit with myself and finding out these strategies or these studying strategies, or finding out that maybe I was more of a stronger writer and I had to lean into that skill and really sit down with myself and know my capabilities and where, again, I was most passionate. It for me at that point, the reason I picked nursing was it fit within my schedule and made sense for me at that time. I think I definitely outgrew that once I went to college and figured out myself a little more. So on the last day of ad drop, I met with the anatomy and physiology professor I had, and we talked about how my performance was and if it was a good time for me to pull out of the program because of my performance, which we all were working on trying to figure out. I was going to tutoring, I was going to office hours, and it still didn't seem to be, I didn't find my groove within the program. But I really did take a moment for myself, and I had time to meet with the social work director, head director, and I also got to meet with the director of psychology and my advisor to make all this happen. So, mind you, on the last day of ad drop, I am running around campus, figuring out my life, making these huge decisions, and that was just the beginning of my story. Let alone when I finally graduated with my bachelor's degree, I didn't have a job. I had no form of employment. I had nothing. And I was starting from scratch, going to Columbia University, taking that risk and hoping that that education, which it did, provided me, in a sense, a different background that I was used to experiencing at Sacred Heart University. So I left my undergrad program with no job. My family had moved from our home that we had been in since I was in high school, and we had moved to another place, and it was just so many changes and so many transitions happening all at the same time. And I felt, in a sense, that I was like disappointing in my journey, I guess, to myself, because I didn't have a job or I didn't have everything figured out. And it just took me a lot of time to realize that while we do have these moments within our journey, or we do feel not positive about it all the time, I think it's important to know that those points in your journey are times to where you find a way to cope with them and you find a way to lean to something, whether that's therapy in a traditional sense or a non traditional sense, or leaning to faith, whatever that may be. So I think, just in addition to, in a non-religious sense, just having faith within yourself and within your journey, let me tell you, it was not easy to find a job. Still, it took me a year to find a job after I graduated Sacred Heart. And it was at Marshall's. Nothing bad about Marshall's, but with a bachelor's degree, you would expect something not at a retail store. However, I really leaned into this Marshall's experience and got to learn so much about sales and the retail aspect, which again inadvertently related to macro social work in a sense. So I got to see the lens of not only that, but applying it to my master's program and then leaving my master's program, still working at Marshall's. So a year after getting my bachelor's, I think it wasn't directly a year after, but it did take a lot of time. And I think I definitely was working at Marshall's yeah, I think actually by the year point, like that October situation. And I was working about 1 day, 2 days a week, barely making anything and still just getting by creating content, not as consistently, not as great as I am today and at the level I'm at today, but I really did lean into the vision of what I have and what I've been producing today. So without those experiences, without those changes, and without those transitions, I would not have been able to be where I am today and have the product to then be able to talk to you here and now. Whenever you're going through a hard situation, I just want you to really think and sit and realize that at the end of the day, this is all molding you into the person you're meant to be at your best. Whether that is, again, you having $2 in your bank account or having 20,000 more. So take that into consideration, especially as you are in your college program or out of it, or even choosing your college program. Be sure and be confident that the strengths, the passions that you have are what you're leaning into. Don't lean into pay, because at the end of the day, if you're doing what you love and you're doing what you're really passionate about, there's going to be money at the end of that. There's going to be a return, because you need to have faith in the decisions and in the path that you have for yourself. After undergrad, many of us feel pressure to have everything figured out: career, direction, goals. But here's the truth: it's okay to not have it all together, to not have it all figured out. I'm a licensed master social worker, and I can tell you firsthand, life is a journey of small shifts, not one big leap. My experience graduating each time posed different moments and feelings. In high school, when I graduated, I was so excited for the next experience, the next step, which for me was college. It made me realize when I was graduating from my undergraduate program, this was different. Yes, I was still going to get my master's degree, but I felt as if I was in a social work limbo. Good enough to have a bachelor's, but not good enough to yet be considered a professional social worker. I still had work to do and changes to be made within a professional capacity that, once were developed for myself, changed the game and how I view not only my experiences, but how I create a product that shows my most authentic self, whether that was through my website, the articles posted within it, or even the TikToks and Instagrams I post. I am constantly participating in any aspect I can that made me uncomfortable before. There were points in my life where I did not feel good enough or worthy enough to do certain things. Well, let me tell you, make the change to be the person you want to be, and you will feel fulfilled whether you have $2 in your bank account or 20,000. Some tips I do have are to embrace the process. It's okay to try different things before settling into something long term. The key is learning and growing along the way. Take every experience as a lesson that shapes you into the professional or person you want to become. Reach out for support. This is not a time to go alone. Use mentors, peers, and your network to help you navigate your career journey. Sometimes simply talking to someone who's been there can open doors and provide guidance. Another item I would like to highlight is building and maintaining relationships, which kind of connects into networking. As we step into adulthood, the nature of our relationships also change. College friendships may fade as you move to different cities or shift priorities. New relationships, romantic, platonic, and professional, come into play, but they are not always easy to navigate. Some tips I have with this one would be to be intentional with your relationships. Surround yourself with people who support your growth and challenge you to be better. It's about quality over quantity. You may outgrow certain connections, and that's okay. Focus on deepening the meaningful relationships in your life. Set boundaries. As we move from college to adulthood, it's easy to get overwhelmed by social expectations. Set healthy boundaries with your time and energy so you don't burn out trying to please everybody. Another aspect I would like to highlight is self-discovery and personal growth. Post-undergrad is often a time of self-discovery. As you step into the professional world, you begin learning more about who you are, what you value, and what makes you tick. But here's the thing: Growth doesn't happen in a straight line. It's messy, and sometimes it's super, super uncomfortable. Some tips I have for that are to be kind to yourself. Change isn't always comfortable, and the road to growth can be bumpy. Allow yourself to make mistakes and learn from them. Your past doesn't define you, it's a part of your story. That's it. Practice self reflection. Take time to check in with yourself regularly. What's working? What's not? What do you need to adjust? Journaling, meditation, or even talking to a therapist can help you gain clarity and stay on track. Another item I would like to highlight is managing expectations and pressure. As a new adult, there's often this unspoken expectation to have it all together, like I mentioned previously. Everyone around you might seem like they have it figured out. But here's something important to remember. Everyone is navigating their own journey of change. It's okay to not have it all figured out immediately. A tip I have for that is don't compare your journey to others. It's easy to get caught up in the success stories we see online. But remember that everyone's timeline is different. Focus on what works for you and give yourself the grace to grow at your own pace. And finally, one of the biggest things I want you to take away from today's conversation: change is a continual process. You're not meant to be the same person in your 20s that you were in your late teens. And guess what? That's a good thing. As you move through these seasons of change, keep in mind that you have everything you need to succeed. The key is to be patient with yourself, embrace the journey, and know you're not alone in it. Remember, there's no single perfect way to navigate adulthood. Change is going to happen, and the more we embrace it with openness, curiosity, and a little bit of patience, the better equipped we'll be for the road ahead. So, to recap, embrace the process of career shifts and explorations. Build meaningful relationships and set healthy boundaries. Give yourself grace as you discover who you are in this new chapter. And finally, let go of comparisons and trust your own pace. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Life After Undergrad. If you've been navigating change and want to share your own experiences, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me on TVSWCT on TikTok and Instagram, or drop a comment below. And don't forget to follow so you don't miss our next upcoming episode. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate your time.